March 3rd, 2021. It's Hump Day, Wednesday. Hope you had a great and prosperous day. Got a really good show today. Today we have Anton Preisinger, Northwest Hospitality. Definitely been looking forward to this interview. Learning about his organization and having some conversations. So he will be at the top of the hour and we will get going. So many good things to talk about. Lots of things going on in the news. Lots of things happening locally. So just really excited about how things are transpiring. Right now, there was going to be an interview earlier today. We weren't able to work it out, but just really cool stuff happened today. But I wanted to make sure that the person was there to share their story. And so you'll get that interview here in a little bit. We'll see if we can't get it in this week while it's still fresh. But there was some other organization that kind of stepped up and it really helped out a family. And it's really good. You know, I was saying in a podcast the other day that, 2021 is, still wrought with a lot of issues that we're dealing with, right? The economy and COVID and the vaccine and homelessness and all the things that we talk about. But yet and still, there is this energy that is present. Right. And I've talked about that and just the conversations that we've had with folks coming onto the podcast and getting to meet new people, getting to meet and hear what their interests are, how they're making a difference in their community, either in new ventures or things that they've been doing for a while. Just really powerful things. So, like I said, 2021 just seems really collaborative in a time where people are ready to, I don't want to necessarily say redouble their efforts, but just work a little bit more toward, achieving whatever those goals are in the sense of community and helping people out, helping each other out, finding ways to be problem solvers, kind of getting off the bench and just, like I said, just being collaborative, right? There's this feeling, there's this energy that's just kind of buzzing around. So it just feels really good. And it's so funny. It's like, almost makes me wonder, it's like, well, man, I wish I would have thought about this before. I thought I was being collaborative in the past because, we work with so many different organizations and so many great people. And, and of course it feels good. I'm not taking anything away from all the relationships that we've created and that we maintain and cultivate. But I think it may just be because it's happening so quickly, so rapidly. People are so willing to, grab the shovel and pitch in and do the work, right? And have ideas and say, hey, well, I'm doing this, and this is how what I'm doing could, help your efforts, and this is how, your efforts can help me, and let's do this together, and just really excited about it. So, it just feels really good. It's very motivating and exciting, and it's a good time to be getting out here and doing the work and finding new spaces to work with other people. That said, I've got to put the word out right now. It looks like CenturyLink is going to open back up. Our fingers are crossed. And we just got word today that they've asked G2 to bring 70 people to the next Sounders game in April. So we are back, and we are back with a vengeance. It's going to be a small event as far as it's not going to open up the entire stadium. But they've asked us to run 14 stands. So if you are interested, if you are already part of our group, do reach out. If you need to, let's check and make sure that your food handler's permit is still valid. Make sure that your mask, your alcohol permit is still valid. If you need to get those things done, go ahead and reach out to us so we can go ahead and get you on a computer to get your food handlers and your mask done. As always, G2 pays for the cost of food handlers permits and your mask permit. We make sure that you get to the event and you get home. If you're on probation or you need community service or volunteer hours, all of those things can be satisfied in that way. If you need a letter because you're on probation and maybe you can't leave the county, we can provide those letters for you. And usually we haven't had much issue. The courts have been pretty supportive and allowing folks to come and travel with us and get them to the event and back. If you've never seen a Sounders game, our team is awesome. I believe we won the cup, 2 years in a row? I think we are the defending champions, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me if I'm wrong, but I think we are. I think we won 2 years in a row. Someone in the chat can let me know if we won last year or not. But yeah, so we need 70. The most we've taken to an event, I think, is somewhere between 35 and 40. So we're looking at doubling that for the first event. So again, blessed and highly favored. We're glad to see that these opportunities are coming. They have retrofitted the stadium to help make sure that people are social distanced and safe. So there's like hand sanitizer dispensers everywhere. They've changed the protocols for being in concessions, where there'll only be 4 to 5 people in a booth. Thank you, Rob, for that. 4 or 5 people in a booth so that we can maintain our distancing even while we're serving the folks. So yeah, just really excited about that. That news just came through. And I was actually going to come on earlier, but it ended up being a really busy day. So it's like all kinds of stuff was happening today. So, and all good, all really good stuff. So it has been a day. Actually, I can't stop smiling. I'm so happy. So it's been really good. But with no further ado, it's the hour, or actually it's at the bottom of the hour. It's 6:34, and our guest is in the waiting room. So I'm going to go admit Anton. Go ahead and our interview. All right. So let's get Anton in. Get him on in. We got folks already watching, so that's great. It got pretty cold last night too. I think it was only a couple degrees above freezing last night. I think it got down to about 34 degrees. How you doing there, Anton? Can you hear me?
I can. How you doing, Marwan?
I'm doing fantastic. It's good to see you. Thanks for making it. Appreciate you.
My pleasure.
So, Anton, will you tell me, how do you pronounce your last name? Because I've been butchering it.
Oh, everybody does, even in our family. I say Preisinger.
Preisinger?
Yes.
Preisinger. Okay, so I'm going to try to pry the wood, and there is a singer that I love, Preisinger.
Yeah, that's my sister. She's the singer.
Really? She's the singer? Okay.
Yes.
Preisinger. That's how I'm trying to. I'm looking at it, I'm like, Preisinger? Oh, boy. So I've been apologizing for saying your name the entire time. So how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Little tired, been busy lately, but doing good.
Good. Well, before we get started, Anton Preisinger is the founder and executive director of Northwest Hospitality. Would you want to tell folks what Northwest Hospitality is and what it does, and then we'll touch on it again at the end of the questions?
Yeah, sure thing. We're a fairly small 501c3 doing homeless outreach, a variety of different projects. Our goal is to be flexible. I started it after a good length of time looking to work with other organizations and partner to run with some programs, and that never worked out. So I've been developing Northwest Hospitality so we can support those kind of grassroots efforts that don't necessarily need to seek their own 501c3 sponsorship or 501c3 status, but could benefit from that sponsorship. So we've been developing to be flexible and kind of fill the gaps between all the other organizations and governmental agencies trying to serve our vulnerable neighbors.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've been working together for probably really close to a year now, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think it was before COVID, so probably a year and a half. So,
Yeah, I mean that's pretty awesome. And do you
mhm.
remember how we ended up getting in contact with each other? How did that happen?
I know I heard about you before we had met. I saw a video of you. I think the Kitsap Sun had done some kind of coverage of G2 when you guys were getting started. I saw that on YouTube, I think, um, and then you might have been the one who initiated, partnership. But I knew you were around, and I think we started working with one of our neighbors because you guys provide transportation, and I was getting into services. So I think that was a real good introduction and partnership there because it's continued to this day.
Excellent. And over on the side, I have Anton's information on Northwest Hospitality, so you can go ahead and click on the link and check out his website. There's a lot of good information there. There's a mobile clothing closet. That's true, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And so if people have needs there, he is meticulous in his inventory control, and so you can actually see what's in there and what you may need. So if you need, let's say, a women's size 10 shoe, dress shoe, if it's in there, you will see it. It's just really awesome. So I can't wait to get through the questions so we can go back and talk more about it. So let's just jump into it so we can get there.
Sounds good.
So if you notice, I got a really big smile on my face. So I've had a really good day. So I'm just really jazzed up today. So don't mind
Excellent.
me. But tell me, we start off at the top. What does Black History mean to you, or just Black History period?
It to me, the first thing that comes to mind is a responsibility uh, to listen and to not keep making the same mistakes that you know people with my heritage have continued to make over several centuries or more. Um, so I think that responsibility goes pretty far. A lot of people talk about being anti-racist. I was at a homelessness convention. I can't remember which one. I can't remember the speaker. I wish I'd taken more notes, but she introduced me to the concept of pro-black instead of anti-racism, and I think about that a lot. I haven't um, made sense of how to do it in a respectful way or what that means and how to convert that into action in too many ways. Um, but it's something I think about and want to be open to making choices that really create an equity for everybody that because everybody deserves it.
You know I want to share with you is first off, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that, and in that, I think it's important for folks to know that just because you happen to be a black person doesn't mean that you are automatically an expert on anti-racism or what was the other term that you used?
She introduced me to the concept of pro black as one step beyond anti racism.
Okay. So, I couldn't speak articulately about those concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important when we're trying to find a space to have these conversations and grow together and change our community, change the country for the better. Um, there will be folks that have different levels of understanding and have been doing the
Yeah.
work for longer periods of time. I'm not one of those people, right? I mean, I walk through the world, as a black man. But as far as being well read, knowing knowing the history and just how different policies have impacted the black community and things like that, I am not the foremost expert on that. I wouldn't even call myself an expert on that. And so I think we learn together, and the fact that we're willing to do that together is powerful, and that's how we're going to end up changing our community and changing how things go.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about is, I think like a lot of people in my position who don't want to be racist, um, a lot of it is circumstantial. Like I definitely have biases and prejudices that are unintentional, and I try to be aware of those. But I think about, growing up, it was not my decision or my parents' decision to not live in areas with a very much diversity, and so there is, the challenges that, um, that kind of not being familiar with cultures or people, can create, biases in your mind just on a biological level. So I think that's one of the uh, things that is important about the Black History Month in particular, or extending it out all year round. Just education and, making more people aware of everybody that makes up our community, because communities aren't always diverse, but our education can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I know Rob is listening in, and so he won't mind me sharing this, but we have a lot of conversations together, and he's one of the closest people to me in my life. And, he's a white man, and he talks about his experience growing up in Michigan and didn't live around any black people and really didn't start having those experiences until he joined the military. So, if that is your domestication, then you're only going to be exposed to what you're exposed to, right? The things you see on the media, athletes, things of that nature. And so, you're not going to have that opportunity as a child because you don't have that kind of control, right? Um, or even that self awareness that that's something that I need to go out and seek, being cultural and learn about everyone else. That it's going to come and happen when it's going to happen. And so I'm thankful to him that we can have those conversations and we can, um, he wants to learn and we are able to kind of process those things and not take offense to um, not knowing, right? I mean, you don't know what you don't
Yeah,
know
right.
until you expose, you're exposed to it. So you got to give people grace, and then you just kind of figure it out. So I definitely appreciate him for that. And so, Rob, if you're in there, if you want to weigh in on that, you can. But thank you for that. All right, so let's go on to our next question. Uh, what can be done? This is an important one for both of us. What can be done to reduce homelessness, either nationwide or here locally?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest social questions I think you can ask. Homelessness has been a problem for centuries, and I've been reading, um, a book, Down and Out on the Road: The History of Homelessness, and I've been reading it for a few months now. I think I'm up through the early 1900s, and it's interesting to watch how, uh, the the view of, back then they were tramps, or and that came from a military term, and or the view of vagabonds, or those are the terms of those days, changed over time. And it's interesting to watch this author's, presentation of the conflict between the groups of people who are compassionate to the needs of those people, and maybe the causes of their homelessness, and then the group of the people who, in maybe my opinion or my observation, are maybe threatened by them, or afraid of how they would react in that situation, or afraid of what, you know people might do to their, um, security, um, because they might not feel that secure. And that's how I give people the benefit of the doubt for the most part, in in when, the not in my backyard people, or other people who are less compassionate, um, they are threatened. And so one of the things I see as very important, to relieving the homelessness problem, which has really escalated over the past couple decades, is to across the board relieve that lack of security for all of the people in the middle and lower middle classes, housed people who would, if they felt secure and not threatened, more than likely want to help, eagerly want to help. And I've seen it. My nonprofit, we do the environmental hospitality, the cleanups at encampments or elsewhere, and we bring the community in, and it's just a passionate and compassionate effort to serve both the community and the people there. And I think it makes people, I've seen it makes some people more, or less threatened by and more understanding of what people have gone through. So as far as finding some solution, I think, to me, that might be one of the keys, is across the board. We have to continue to always try to raise people up and give them opportunities to climb out of homelessness, but it can also start at that level with the housed community, making sure people feel secure, safe, and not threatened by homelessness itself, or by the people who are affected by homelessness.
Well, what would be some ways that we could go about making those folks feel safe? Because I think a lot of it is just, the not knowing, or having, homeless individuals, being stigmatized as, oh,
Mhm.
they're dangerous, or is this or that, or.
Community projects, like the cleanups, or handing out hygiene kits, anything to get people involved in outreach, and meeting people, groups like Facing Homelessness, and there's some others out there that publish stories of our neighbors and really humanize them. Um, that's one big half of it, and then the other half is, I don't I don't think the other half is a fear of person. It's a fear of circumstance. So creating better, uh, creating more affordable housing opportunities would not only help the people struggling with homelessness, but it would help the lower and middle class not feel so threatened by the actual homelessness itself. And I think that would help people, be more comfortable reaching out, help people be more comfortable being compassionate. Because if you're not worried about your day to day, you can kind of think outward a little bit more.
Right, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. Now, one of the because you do the environmental, the cleanup and things of that nature. One of my other interviewees had suggested, could the state or local municipalities provide a dumpster to the homeless encampments so that they would actually have a place to put the trash? It's like, well, if they
Yeah.
had a place, they probably, more likely than not, most people would put it in the trash, which is going to be good for everyone, right? It's going to be good for them where they're at, for the people that are worried about property values and the danger and things like that. That'll
Hmm.
cut down on those things, maybe put a few porta potties out there, whatever the case may be. Is that something that you ever heard of before? I thought it was a great idea.
Oh, definitely. It's been tried many times. I actually have a short blog piece on our website about the cleanups and about kind of about this topic. But oftentimes, from my own research, and talking to the folks in Kitsap County who are really on top of doing what they can to help, um, it's often the housed neighbors who sink dumpster programs like that. As soon as you stick a dumpster in a neighborhood to serve people who don't have other solutions, the dumpster gets filled up by people who see that as an opportunity to,
Oh, wow.
skip out on the dump fees.
Gotcha.
And housed people have a lot of junk. So it's been tried time and again, and I've seen very often that those dumpsters have to get pulled because you know, I would argue that should be, or in many cases could be built into the budget of the project. You just have to accept some of that. It's not like people are going to be coming from 20 miles out
Right, right.
to drop their
Eventually,
stuff
they're
in.
going to get rid
Just,
of everything,
yeah,
and
plan for some of that and accept it. That's maybe what I would argue in most circumstances, but I can see why a city would choose not to do that. Um, but what I've been working with the Kitsap County folks and with and Seattle is using a purple bag program, is providing trash bags to the encampments and letting them fill the bags and call a number on the bag, and it can get picked up by litter teams from the city. So that's a good compromise. It gives people a solution, and it can't be abused by the house neighbors who would take advantage of a dumpster. So
right,
we're making progress with that. It's a logistical nightmare to make sure everything gets picked up and to make sure everybody has bags. And it's not a golden or silver bullet solution, because there is apathy. I mean, a lot of people living in this situation feel like nobody cares, and if nobody cares about you, then why do you care about throwing the Gatorade bottle on the floor? Like, um,
right.
if you think about it, if you spend any time thinking about it, you can kind of empathize with their situation. Like, you're worried about the next meal, you're worried about, your propane heater just broke, so you got to figure out some way to get a new adapter for it or something. So you're not worried about the trash that you're discarding. And that's where the community comes in and needs to make people feel a part of the community, even if they are not housed, um, so that they feel like they're not on their own. And that goes a long way. And we've seen it at a couple parks throughout Kitsap where, we go out and clean up a few times, and the interest builds. The turnover is also a problem. People move on, so you get new people. So it's a very complicated problem. But yeah, the dumpsters have been tried, and for the most part, those fail because um, housed neighbors don't respect the concept of the program.
Now, Robert says housing stability makes it easier to move forward to overcome the other barriers to become more self-sufficient. I definitely agree with that sentiment. I love that you're sharing this because you hear an idea, and I can't, she proposed the idea, but I don't know what the answer is, and so now you're able to share with everyone. No, it's something that's been done, but this problem has arisen. And I wonder, just kind of thinking about it from an outsider, kind of with fresh eyes, like you said, it may just be the cost of doing business, but at the same time, both parties have their points that are valid, right?
Yeah.
And so, these folks are here, they're worried about their kids or, property values or whatever, or blight or whatever the case may be. And I said, well, like, look, this encampment's going to be here for however amount of time. We are going to put this dumpster here, and you are going to be able to bring your things here, and it's going to be okay. It's kind of an
Hmm.
exchange, right? So there's value added
Yeah.
to both sides. And, maybe that is a solution. On top of that is, you know, there's the saying, one person's trash is another person's treasure. As Americans are, we tend to throw out things that are perfectly good or can be repurposed, and which might actually benefit some of the people that are in the encampments, depending on what it is. So, I mean, I could see it being kind of beneficial both ways. I don't know if it's ever been, framed in that way, or try to get community buy-in from where folks are.
Yeah, I'd be interested to address that. I think mostly it's a funding issue, with the cities providing the dumpsters. There's some groups over in Seattle who've provided dumpsters themselves, but as soon as the Purple Bag program was released, dumpsters are expensive, so they
Uh,
they switched over to doing that. And I think one person's trash is another person's treasure is a definitely true, but as I mean, as a you and I as kind of nonprofit outreach leaders, I kind of shirk away from. It's a creative solution, but I wouldn't want to tote that as a benefit of a shared dumpster. I don't want to encourage people to dumpster dive.
No, I get it. Well, but maybe it's a thing where they're not throwing it away. It's being brought
Yeah.
out. They're almost kind of like a yard giveaway, not a yard sale, but no sale.
Hmm.
Before it actually goes in the dumpster.
Yeah,
Instead of just
that's
tossing it
kind of
away.
how I have the mobile closet set up a little bit, clothes and supplies. People can, but we can talk about that later if you want.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
sure, yeah.
that's kind of the concept there. Uh, Similar to buy nothing groups on Facebook and Nextdoor.com, all those places. But you don't have to have. You can just go to the website. You don't have to have Facebook.
And those dumpsters are expensive because I think we pay
Yeah.
$1,000 a month for our dumpster, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's spendy, and if it keeps getting filled up, then you're gonna pay more. So yeah, it's no joke for sure.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on the $15 minimum wage? Right, I mean, it's still in the news. We don't know if it's gonna happen. If it does, it won't be phased in for about 5 years. I mean, businesses, more small and mom and pop businesses will be impacted.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, we're so far behind on raising the minimum wage. What's your thoughts on
I'm 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 a little conflicted maybe on that. Is uh, I work as an EMT, very very part time, in Kitsap County, and it's not a small mom and pop, but it's a small organization that would be affected by that. And I definitely, one thing that goes without question is that I recognize the disparity between living expenses and minimum wage. I'm not convinced that there's not another solution besides just continuing to jack up the minimum wage. I think if you actually look at the numbers and compare them to 30, 40 years ago, or longer, $15 an hour is not even a you know it's a small percentage of what it should have been raised. I think it should be like $35 or something like that, based on housing prices and all that. So raising it to $15 kind of seems like a fake fake solution almost. I would support it if it comes in front of me and I'm going to vote for it. That's the that's the low hanging fruit that I would definitely support, but it's not enough. And um, you know, some kind of pressure needs to be put on the capitalism of raising house prices. I want people to be able to make a living. I want people to be able to earn their million if they put in the work. But people need to live, and so there needs to be a balance struck somewhere. And we missed that balance decades ago. And $15 an hour might is going to help a lot of people, but it's not a solution. It's a step. So I'm a little bit conflicted. I think I've seen um, both sides on how it's worked in Seattle,
that?
and for the most part, I think I'm more convinced that it's worked in Seattle. Um, Although COVID changing, where people are living and
Right.
house prices, that's kind of thrown a hitch into everything over there. You're not going to be able to really analyze you're not going to be able to pull that COVID variable out of the $15
For sure.
wage going down the road. So it's complicated. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's just a step, not a solution. Um, a step I would support, but yeah.
Have you thought of any ways on how, let's say the $15 came in. We know it's still not going to hit the cost of living. We're going to have to deal with inflation. We have all these different unique factors, at least here in the county, that raise our housing costs. Gas prices go up. Everything just goes up. Have you thought about any other type of solutions that could possibly be used to supplement people's income so that they can have a closer to a livable wage so that they can, at least, you know, do a little bit more than just survive.
I don't know why it is, but I tend to think about it from the other direction.
Mm.
Um, the the people at the bottom, to be crude about it, they don't have any power. um, the people at the top, the landlords, the banks, they need to change something to drop housing prices. Um, Short of that, I've had this pipe dream through Northwest Hospitality for a couple of years now of uh, creating a way too complicated network of contractors and plumbers and skilled laborers, and uh, suppliers, who would um, incentivize landlords to lower their prices, at least on some units in apartment buildings or something. Like, hey, this, contractor XYZ will come in and do 5 hours a month of whatever you want for free
Oh wow.
if you make this apartment, $500 a month. Like, it seems like some kind of exchange there. The contractor gets to write off their volunteer work. um, Somebody gets to move in and live for cheap. Some complicated network of services like that to affect the top end of the pricing. And then, sure, we should try to um, bridge the gap from both ends by supplementing incomes or whatever somehow. But um, I see there to be more opportunity at the top to make those changes. I mean, even just people, and a lot of them can't. A lot of landlords aren't making bank. I was a landlord for a couple of years, and we had a tree grow into our drainage line. The house flooded. We, lost 15 grand. Um, Even after what the insurance pulled out. We were a landlord because we bought a house and then had to move 2008. Lost jobs and we had to go move. So we had this house. We couldn't sell it. It wasn't. I can't remember why, but so we rented it out for a couple of years, and we ended up. There was no way we were going to make money on any of that.
Right, right.
um, even before we were just paying off the mortgage. But even before the root grew into the drainage line, so a lot of landlords can't, sacrifice some of their fabulous wealthy income to make more affordable housing. But the ones who can, maybe you should think about it. you know
So kind of almost like the big corporate tax that they talk about, and so
yeah,
for those that are way up there that can do it, then tax it or create some subsidies that way.
yeah,
Right.
and that would affect the whole housing market.
Mm-hmm.
The the people at the very top taking a couple $100 a month off their, even higher rent places, then all, it's a house of cards. Everything below that falls as well. um, Maybe not one to one, but it's all tied together so tightly. That's how it's all risen so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So if it feels like it could turn around quicker coming from the top like that than it could from groups like ours supplementing things, or the government coming in from the bottom and pushing everybody up. We need to meet in the middle somewhere.
I wonder if they could do something like, how they have the earned income tax credit for folks that have children. If they could do that for landlords that rent to low income folks, and it could be a sliding scale depending on that person's income, and then they give them some type of a tax write off for renting to that demographic, and on that particular scale. I wonder if they could do something like that and give them a
I
tax
th-
break.
I think they do.
Do they?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how it's structured, but I was at another one of I think it was the conference to end homelessness 2 or 3 years ago, and they were they were talking about, I can't remember what the program's called, but the apartment complexes are often mandated or maybe they have to enter the program, but they have to have a certain percentage of low income apartments. But what we discussed in the conference, or what I learned in the conference, was um, a lot of them they opt to just pay the fines.
Oh, really?
They may have those units that are designated for low income, but they would prefer to rent to the maybe people they feel they can trust more, or people they feel can pay more regularly. Although the I believe there's a subsidy that makes those units, um, makes it so the landlords don't lose income on those units. Uh, they fairly often choose to just pay the fines, was my understanding from that. And so, what do you do with that? You raise the fines, or you make it more mandatory some other way. So, um, but I believe I believe I'm remembering correctly that some kind of program like that does exist, that kind of mandates landlords of larger apartment complexes, at least some of them, to hold
Well,
affordable housing units.
if I'm not mistaken, I know that they will give some builders incentives to build if they will say, okay, you know what, you're going to say that 20% of these units are going to be low income units, right? But if you build 10 units, well, that's two houses. It doesn't
Yeah,
solve the problem, right? You need so many
right.
more. So it sounds like it's making an impact. And of course it does for the people that are in that unit. But we've got a crisis,
At
not a
at
problem.
scale, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I wonder, if we're thinking about just people like how you were, you had another piece of property you had to move. If you were incentivized in that way, where you're impacting, you know, um, more people and not corporations or organizations, would that make an impact if they were given some kind of subsidy like that? And yes, you could get $1,800 for a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, but you're going to say, you're gonna rent it out for 14, let's say, and you're gonna get some kind of a tax credit. It might not make up that 400, but
Yeah,
maybe it makes up 300. So you get 3,600 off of your taxes or something like that. And I don't know if they're doing anything like that, or if they would even consider doing something like that.
yeah. I don't know details. It's certainly not from my experience, um, back in 2008, 2009, when we were moving. It's definitely not something that was on my radar
Gotcha.
as somebody who was moving. So if there are programs like that, then they need to be um, more advertised to people who were in my position, um, who have just that one extra property that they might sell in a year or two. Um, you know, that should be something proposed by the mortgage companies, or the lending, the rental agencies. Um, that's an option to get that information out there.
Well, and what I think is important about conversations like these is, one, we're not sitting at the table, having those conversations, so we don't know what they've talked about,
Yeah,
or if they're even thinking about the problem in the ways that we're talking about it right now. And so maybe someone in the chat or someone who watches this later on says, "Oh yeah, you know what? No, we haven't thought about that, or it has been thought of, or just having this conversation. We can't do that, but we might be able to do this, and solutions
right.
are kind of born out of it." And I think that's what the solutions are. You have folks that have been in office or in these positions for, in some sense, decades, right? And it's like, yeah, probably not a lot of new ideas coming down the pipe that way. So having some fresh ideas, people looking at it a different way, and just kind of spitballing ideas, and just looking at it from a different lens, because everyone sees things differently, I think can
Yeah,
be, overall beneficial. Anyway, you are watching The Conduit, and I am here with Anton Preisinger. I said it correctly
nailed it.
because it's in my mind now. It's like I'm not going to forget it. I'll say it really slowly, but I will not forget. Rob says, 35 years ago, I made $2.85 an hour and was overjoyed to make $7 an hour. That would be the equivalent of making about $28 an hour now. I think $15 is not nearly enough to live on. So I think we definitely all agree with that for sure. And so we left off at talking about minimum wage, which was a really good conversation. And we were talking about just some other ways of solutions and just talking about coming from the bottom up and not the top down. That's what I was saying when the feed died. So you probably didn't hear me talking about that. And
Yeah.
what you had said in one of the earlier questions was, things have to change from the top. And so I've kind of been advocating for people to get more involved at the ground level, starting to sit on committees, joining boards, and understanding that they have more power than they think. And the
Hmm.
more and more that they start doing that, because those end up being our leaders, right? They sit on the boards, they sit on the committees, they go through local government typically, and then they kind of ascend through the ranks. And then I think more of what the people want, the people's interest will be more in line as folks get more distant from their local communities. You think that's accurate, or am I just
Yeah.
wishfully thinking?
No, I think that makes, I think that's accurate. I don't think it's opposite what I was saying. I think our definitions of top and bottom are a little different. So I think the people you're talking about who should be getting more active and getting more involved um, in on boards and committees and through local government, I think I see them as part of the group at the top who can um, influence. They're your standard influencers,
Mhm.
but there's people, and I don't like to say that they're at the bottom, but socioeconomically, there's people below them who need to focus on their next meal, who need to focus on their, you know, contacting DSHS to find a housing opportunity or work source for work or G2 for work employment help. Um, and that's the difference I'm talking. I when we talk about um, supplementing the incomes of the people who are focused on their survival so that they can afford whatever we want to give them, that's what I see as the backwards way to do it.
Gotcha.
The people who can influence the situation should be doing that more, and that's where the so I agree with you entirely. That's where the pressure needs to be coming from. The people who have the privilege of the time and the energy and the uh, financial situation to influence what's going on from the top down, in the sense that the the housing prices themselves could come down and not hurt the people at the top. So that I think we're saying the same thing. I just had a little bit different um, background definition for a few of that.
It's funny too. Is while you were speaking, I was thinking about get out the vote. Right, there's this big push always to get out the vote, and it's like at some point I think it almost needs to shift. Right, it's not get out the vote. It's hey, you know what, you be the one that's voted on. You know,
Yeah,
listen.
listen
Yeah.
and open up. And there's so many. Georgia just passed. Georgia and Tennessee. I can't remember. I know Georgia was one of them. Just passed laws. Closing down opportunities for voters, like making it harder to vote. Um, Voting by mail. The misinformation that's been released around that. Just again, it's about the in my humble, uneducated opinion, it's about this group that feels threatened, and some of them are racist and they feel threatened because they don't want to lose their power, and some of them are threatened because they've bought into some misinformation about the validity of mail-in voting, for this example. um, and so they're threatened, so they try to shut that down. And if we had better communication and better information for people, then at least the ones that are not overtly racist would realize that you know because a lot of this does hinge around racism, as I'm sure gerrymandering and letting ex felons vote and all these decisions that are trying to um, restrict the power of people who should be equal. So, um, yeah.
Well, and I think again that's why I think the conversation should be more is not only get out the vote, but be the person that's voted, who's voted on, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I never really thought about being in that position when I was, yeah, I would say it's more of a young person's game, but it's anyone's game, really. Um, but that was never a consideration. It was just get out, be a registered voter, vote for your interests. Typically those interests are democratic as growing up, um, and that's kind of what it was, right? And not thinking of what, well, I could actually get involved and kind of learn how these things run, and I can run for office myself, and I can be the change. And so I've had so many conversations with folks. I'm feeling disenfranchised and not having any kind of power or influence or control over their lives in regards to laws and policies that are passed. And I think of one specific thing is when they passed no smoking indoors here, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of my friends that smoked, oh, they were just hopping mad. And I asked them if they voted, and they said no. And it's like, well, I mean, if you didn't vote for your own interest, I mean, even if it wasn't gonna, have a chance, you still gotta get involved. So, but folks become disenfranchised, and they give up before they even try. And that I think that's kind of the worst trick, right? Is to tell people that they don't have power and they can't change things when they
Yeah.
actually can. All right.
So are you gonna get more political then? Are you gonna run for office or
No, no, no,
no?
no, no.
If you did, would you do it here or would you move to do it? Like move to a state that was more contentious?
Well, I mean, I've got a 9-year-old here, so some of the things, my motivations on doing what I do is, this is her community, and I want it to be a good, thriving community for her, and whatever she decides to do, I want her to grow up safe and feel like she's in a community that she can thrive in and be who she wants to be. So, yeah, my dad always said charity starts at home. So this is home for
Mhm.
me. So, yeah, that's it. We have Dawn Michelle is in, and
Hi,
she
Don
says
Michelle.
Anton, and she said that's two of my favorite on one screen. So shout out to you, Dawn Michelle. You are definitely one of our favorites too. She's a huge advocate of both of our organizations. Um, so a lot of good folks uh, collaborating together. Like I said, it just feels like a different time right now. So it's just fantastic. All right. So my next question for you is, what do you feel about the vaccine? We've got the 2-shot one. Now we've got the Johnson 1 shot that's now out on delivery. We have I think President Biden just said by the end of May, every adult will have there's enough doses for every adult to get one. We have some states that have decided to totally open up right now. And even though the numbers have gone down, I was saying this on another podcast, there was a time when there were 1,000 deaths a day and the country was in a panic. There was a ticker on every channel and it was just showing it. And we're coming back to 2,000 and 1,000. And now it's like we have such COVID fatigue. It's like, yeah, well, you know what? 1,000, 1,500 deaths a day. Let's open up and let's just go back to normal. It is what it is. When we were on the ascend, this was a crisis of epic magnitude. So what do you think about the vaccine?
I am loosely a healthcare provider, and I do have a biology background. So I'm thrilled and very excited by both the vaccine and the technology that's enabled it to be what it is. The messenger RNA versions, anyways, are I mean, they're groundbreaking and potentially even outside of COVID, just there's a lot of potential there that's really exciting. So,
Unknown caller.
um, as far as I know, as far as I can tell, I got the vaccine. Um, well, either because I'm an EMT or because I was volunteering with some of the shelters in the area um, back in December. So I was one of the early shots, and I jumped on it, and there's nothing you do without any risk, but when you put two things against each other, COVID and this vaccine, which I wish had been um, communicated, explained better. I think I'm really excited by the vaccine, but I'm also COVID exhausted and a little bit drained and demoralized by the everything that happened over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we should be in such a better position right now if things had been communicated better. There should have been a national celebration with the vaccine. It should have been, and it's kind of surprising that it's not, because it was, the past administration's vaccine. It could have been something that was latched onto and celebrated, but it was politicized, and it was
It was election year.
misunderstood. Sorry.
It was election year.
Yeah, it was politicized in a way that it should. I mean, yeah, it could have been politicized in a positive way, actually,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if they'd made different choices. It should have been a celebration of science and technology and health and saving our neighbors. Instead, half of the country is terrified of this thing that is not too difficult to understand, and campaigns are trying to play catch up on education and getting the proper information out there, and that's frustrating to me. So I'm excited by the vaccine, but I'm frustrated by where we are. And I used to work in labs, and I wish that I missed that part of it. I wish I could have been a part of building something like this. I mean, it's going to save millions of lives and change billions others. So um, yeah, I'm excited about it, but kind of exhausted like everybody else.
Well, there's two things that kind of frustrate me with the whole situation. Is one, one person attacks, the other person defends, right? So when President Trump was in office, the Dems attacked, and now it's the reverse, right? So it's a tit for tat, and so it's like, well, who can fall back? Who will fall back? And there is so polarizing: open or stay closed. Seem to be the options: mask or don't mask, vaccine or anti-mask. There doesn't seem to be a lot in the middle. But my
Yeah,
issue with both administrations was, and still currently, right, and this is from the top, and even more locally, is they just seem to be so reactionary and not proactive. To
yeah,
me, it just seemed to make sense. Like, look, if everyone just said, okay, you know what, we're going to social distance, we're just going to lock this thing down for 2 months. The government is saying, you know what, here's what we're going to do. Instead of putting this on landlords and renters, we're going to put it on the banks. We bailed your asses out in 2008. So
yeah,
now, the homeowners aren't going to be impacted. The renters aren't going to be impacted. We're just going to freeze everything. No interest, no nothing. You guys eat that. You make billions of dollars on American citizens. You can swallow that, right? As far as stakeholders and dividends, at the end of the day, it's for the greater good. And you lock it down for 2 months, get a hold of it, and then we get the vaccine. You reach your herd immunity. People that want to take it can take it. Those that are a little reserved can continue to isolate, and we wouldn't be in this situation. And they're
yeah,
already saying, hey, we got St. Patrick's Day coming up. What else do we have coming up? And so we just kind of find this thing where it's like, okay, all right, we know we're going to have this spike, And as soon as the numbers start going down, everyone's like, "Oh, let's open back up." And it's like, "But wait a minute, we got this," and we just keep going through this thing, and we just keep chasing something that we never get ahead of, and it's so frustrating. It's like, so that's my exhaustion with it.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but I posted a very similar thought to that to one of your podcasts a couple weeks ago, I think. It should have been on the banks again from the top down. The banks could have stopped all of this, and then we wouldn't need to worry about rent moratorium or all this stuff. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, that was from the very first podcast.
Was that the first one?
That was
Yeah,
the very
yeah.
first podcast. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how that's related to what I meant by it could have been politicized positively. Like I don't really believe that if the previous administration had said, "Hey, we got to mask up, we got to trust this vaccine, and we got to isolate and stay home," I don't believe, and I could be completely wrong, that the you know Democrats would have revolted against that to their own detriment to the degree that it's gone the other direction. And I think the vote would have gone completely the other way around if those three things had been changed: mask, stay home, trust the science. That one related change, and we would have, I think, a different outcome uh, last November.
Well, yeah, I actually definitely agree with that. But I also think that both parties' interests would have actually been met, right? So,
Yeah,
Dems, for the most part, on the left wanted to stay indoors and kind of shut down. The Republicans wanted to open up and not harm the economy. But if we shut down for a significant piece of time where everyone committed to it, we would be able to open back up and then not have those issues. And if you kept restaurant owners and business owners and everything else whole by suspending whatever they was going on, right?
exactly.
Even if you did stimulus and things of that nature, at this point you've spent how many billions of dollars, right? So you end up throwing money at the problem after the fact. I just think there were some different ways, and it's
Yeah.
easy to say that as an armchair quarterback, and I definitely will be the first one to say, there's a reason why I'm not in politics, right? I'm not envious of the decisions that they need to make, but
I just hope and pray that we can learn. I mean, we heard the lessons that people picked up from the 1918s flu, and we heard the lessons that we picked up from SARS in the 90s or early 2000s. We heard all the lessons, but we didn't do anything with them. So I'm really hoping and praying that this time around, with technology being what it is, we can save some of this information, save some of these discussions, and the next one, because this virus is tame. I mean, this could be so much worse. And when it comes out again, in 10 or 15 years, hopefully we can realize that a shutdown of 2 months, a solid shutdown of 6 months, if you support the businesses so they don't have to close down and make sure people can eat, that's way better in the long run than just trying to ride it out and going up and riding the waves of the infection cycle.
right,
So I hope that we can learn, but I'm not very optimistic.
absolutely. You are watching The Conduit with Marwan Cameron. Our guest today is Anton Preisinger of Northwest Hospitality. Don Michelle says, "Thank you for doing this, Marwan Cameron. So many of us have come to know each other through the work we do, but never have time to actually get to know each other because the work we are doing keeps us so busy. It's been nice getting to hear people's views on some very important issues." Absolutely agree with that for sure. Um, and that's one of the reasons, that I wanted to do this. And I was telling folks, we were going to do a public access TV show before COVID, and then everything shut down. And so, you got to reinvent the wheel. That's what it is. And so many of us are isolated and social distancing, and we know of all the issues, the depression, the sadness, the addiction, the suicide, the domestic violence. I mean, there's just so many different things that are all happening because of it as it increases. Um, that it's important that people are able to connect on a human level and not, you know, we can still have these conversations here, but have them, I think, in a more real space where we're not watching kind of the talking head pundits at 30,000 feet. Kind of have these conversations, and we get to see each other and talk about fun stuff and laugh and also be thoughtful. So, absolutely agree with that. All right, so let me ask you this: there are so many empty, abandoned buildings all over Kitsap County. What could they do with these buildings? What should they do?
Um, well, it depends, what the county needs, and the county needs, everywhere needs low income housing, but not all of the buildings that are empty and abandoned would convert well to that. Um, but especially after COVID, and maybe it's short sighted, but it'd be nice to have more community centers,
Hmm.
built with health involved. One of the things I'm, as a, in a past life biologist, curious to see is, right now our influenza rates are rock bottom, and it'll be interesting to watch over the next 5 years, as we forget, people start getting influenza more and more and more because we forget. If we can hold on to these lessons, so if we can build some community centers with community health standards in mind, not isolating people, not building partitions everywhere, but keeping tables distanced, making sure we can keep things sterile, hand sanitizer places, then we can come back together as a community and hang out again, but actually maintain the hygiene standards that we've kind of had hammered into our heads over the years. So that's one thing maybe we could do. I'm a member on the board with Project Share in Kitsap County, and they're kind of leading the new effort for a tiny house village in the area, which is something that's uh, desperately needed in the area because it's a transitional option that's not available right now anywhere in our area. So if
Wait, do you mind
you know
sharing a little bit about that for those of us that might not know about Project Share?
Sure. Well, Project Share, I'm just kind of a hanger on, but it's a group mostly of churches in the area who wanted to come together. They started as just a community group, and they formed their 501(c)(3) so that they'd be able to have the capacity to take on something like a tiny home village, and the bottom fell out of that a few years ago. But they're still vested in it and looking for new ways to make it happen. So, um,
Nice.
and I'm hoping to help in whatever way I can through them to make that happen, because I see the definitely the benefits of it. But so um, as much low income housing as possible, community centers, and by low income housing, it's dangerous to fall into a crappy housing. That shouldn't be the standard. It should be affordable, quality living places, that you'd want your mom to be able to live in for a year if she had to or something. So
Right.
um, I don't know what else you can do with what else. I haven't spent too much time thinking about the abandoned buildings in the area, but um, I don't have too many other thoughts on that. I guess I
Is
don't.
that I just think about him, Anton, from this standpoint. As we got into the freezing temperatures, and not that it needs to be freezing for this to happen, but we have all these abandoned buildings. We have all these folks that are homeless and outside, and it's like, okay, so why don't we?
Oh, did we drop again?
No, no, we're still here. Why don't we allow them to stay inside? You know, um,
Oh no.
I can still hear you, so we should still be good. We're looking pretty good. Looks like I'm 5 by 5 on this side, so I'll keep talking until you come back in. Oh, yep, no. We definitely dropped. All right. So we dropped again. Unfortunately, guys, we are having an outage here in Kitsap County over in this area. So, again, I apologize. Um, there's nothing we can actually do about that. I might be able to put this onto my phone and see what's going on there. But again, you are watching The Conduit with Marwan Cameron. We will come back online momentarily.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
Yeah, my router went out again. So Rob looked up Xfinity and says there's an outage in my area,
Oh no.
which is just unfortunate. This and bypass Comcast, who I hate. I absolutely hate Comcast. So I'm gonna use my phone as a modem, and then try to do it this way. I've done this one
Sounds
other.
good.
I did it one other time. It wasn't as great. So there's this program that you can use where you start off on your regular Wi-Fi, and if your Wi-Fi goes down, it automatically kicks over to the phone. But I haven't had a chance to figure that out yet. I don't even know how the weather is looking outside. Echo, what is the weather? All right. Looks like we are back. Mr. Dent, if you are out there listening, just let us know if you can hear us and if we are still 5x5. Much appreciate that. But it looks like we're doing pretty good from what I can see. So just let me know and we will continue. Just want to make sure that we are good to go.
I don't need many pixels for my face. Just 2 here, 1 here, a couple here.
Well, the thing is, I mean, there's so many different things you have to consider, right? So you've got, like, if you're doing thank you, Rob. If you're doing a Zoom and then you're broadcasting live, the computer's got to take in the input wirelessly or digitally and download the stream in, and then, convert it, do whatever, take mine, add it to yours, and then upload it to Facebook.
Right.
And then sometimes YouTube simultaneously. So it's a lot of moving pieces all at the same time. So
It is pretty impressive.
Comcast is getting the word after this is all said and done. And I guarantee you this will not be the look on my face when I'm on the phone. Rob's heard me on the phone with Comcast, so it's like, Mr. Cameron, my word. All right, so how would you define friendship? What makes a good friend? What's important to you? Kind of attributes
I
that you look for.
I think well, I like to, Don Michelle's a good friend. You're a good friend. People who you can share values with, and I like to say who you can rely on, but also who you can feel would rely on you as well. I think it's important for that to be mutual, but not always for both of those things. I think a lot of friendships can be strengthened by a little bit of um, disagreement, maybe, or so long as people understand each other. Understanding is an important part of it, but I think friendships can be strengthened by um, conflict in a way. Um, and if the conflict, it's one of those things. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Um, so when when you sent me this question beforehand, and I was thinking about it, and one of the things that I thought of was the you probably know of him, the man Daryl Davis.
Mm.
He is a black man who has converted like 200, 300 Ku Klux Klan members. He's gone in and befriended them and created a friendship, and so that concept of friendship is challenging, but it's a part of at least some friendships, and being able to do that is something to admire, I think. um, and so when I saw this question, that was one of the first things I thought of, was he was able to see a friendship out of, or create a friendship out of the worst kind of hate.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that, then friendship is something that I think is more powerful than maybe a lot of people think to give it credit. um, and it's also, going cliche mode here, but it's also one of those things when really deep friendships can be that you don't see you for 5 years, but when you get back together for 2 hours, it's like no time has passed, kind of thing. So you've got both ends of the spectrum. You're on the same page entirely, and you kind of forcing each other to change um, mutually. I think it's complicated.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I love asking these questions because there's similarities in some answers, but then they diverge in so many different ways, and it's like, okay, well, that's not how I thought you were going to define friendship. And hey, you remember the black guy that went into the Klan and befriended those folks? It's really important, and I think you kind of hit on really one of the main reasons why I put that question in there, because we're talking about vaccines and homelessness and minimum wage. It's like friendship. Where did that come from? How does that relate? But ultimately, again, it's about talking with each other, finding those commonalities, understanding what makes us different, instead of just saying you're different, so I don't like you or I'm against your point of view. And I think that your example, it really just hits it home and illustrates really what it's about, right? And the purpose of having that question in there. And then secondarily, there's a lot of us that struggle with friendships, right? And kind of the second question I'm going to ask you is, what makes a good spouse? What are those qualities that allow you to be in a successful relationship with a significant other? What are your thoughts on that?
I think you definitely have to be a little bit more on the same page side of the spectrum, as opposed to the adversarial side of the spectrum. But it's you know marriage in the, to take it the traditional way, is definitely challenging. It's not something, it it's something that you get out of it what you put in, and if you don't put in enough, and sometimes it's, not to frame uh, relationship failures as anybody's responsibility or fault, but sometimes if you don't put in enough, then that can lead to a failure, and maybe the question should be asked why you're not putting in enough. If love is an important part of um, a spousal relationship, then, which it hasn't always been. You go back a couple hundred years ago, before romanticism and all that. People married for money or status all the time, and it was kind of how things were done. So,
Or necessity for survival, right?
yeah, yeah, out of necessity, out of creating new kingdoms. But if you take it as love is a central part of that now, then if you're not willing to put in enough to a relationship, then probably that love isn't there. Because when in my perspective, when you love someone or something, then you're willing to sacrifice, you're willing to put in what it needs to make something work. So um, I've been married for 13 years, 2 kids, very happy. But it's not easy, and nobody should be convinced that it should be easy, because the best things in life you got to work for.
Well, let me ask you this: when there's conflict, what do you do? Do you have a kind of a pact with each other on how you resolve things when there's conflict, or is it just things that each one of you do on your own?
I think a pact is a good idea. It's not necessarily something we've explicitly drawn up or anything, but we probably do have an agreement. Neither, and everybody's different. Neither one of us are kind of confrontational or aggressive. So I don't think we're passive aggressive either. I don't know. We try to keep things low. I think, you know, as with friendship, communication is very important. And, you know, making sure that things don't get miscommunicated, and being open to the fact that miscommunications are going to happen, um, you know, is a good way to put yourself in another person's shoes. So,
So being a single man right now, and listening to folks give their answers, and I would say majority of the folks that I've interviewed so far have been married. Um, the simplest way that I can simplify it is really committing to being committed.
yeah,
Is how I've taken it, right? And oftentimes, I was married for 10 years, but you have to continue to be committed, and if you do that, if both parties are doing that, then you're going to be able to work through whatever the adversity comes because you're committed to being committed, um, and you don't lose sight of that. You know what I mean? And I
yeah,
think that's where relationships end up failing, is that you lose that commitment to be committed. And if the other person is going through maybe a short season of not being as committed because they're going through that crisis, maybe they lost a parent or went through, they're struggling with a health issue, or whatever the case may be, and you're in that situation where you're not going through it to that level that they are, that your commitment of being committed during that time will help that person to come through and just kind of navigate through it. And I
so
haven't
in
really
the
heard anyone say that. What do you think about that?
so in the um, courtship period, or the pre spousal period, is it just as important then to be committed to not be committed? um, because if you enter into a spousal relationship with somebody that you're going to commit to being, you're going to commit to that commitment, then um, I think that love is a key to that both working and being healthy. If you don't have the love, then from a 21st century perspective, then it's not a healthy thing to pursue a continued commitment, or at least that's something that should be thought about. I'm not sure of the answer, but in a, you know, how do you, the relationship changes when you get married, obviously, in a lot of different ways. But when you're not married, approaching a relationship knowing that you're going to commit to this commitment down the road, it's important to be open to not committing, you know, so to avoid mistakes, maybe.
Right. No, I hear you. I understand. No, it's interesting. So, we're having these conversations and having the perspective of, being married and now finding myself single after, a long time. It's like, what the hell happened? This wasn't like it was before when I was, back, pre 2002 or something like that. It's like, these are some strange times, but honestly, I probably just got old. It's more that I'm just not up with the times, but it's pretty crazy. We got Cynthia in the house. He says, unconditional love, exclamation point. And Dawn can still hear us, so we are 5 by 5. So, yeah, no, thank you for that. And I think that's, also really important. And one of the other reasons why I put that question in there is going forward. You said, 10 or 15 years before we have a next pandemic or some kind of crisis. Let's knock on wood and hope that it's, it takes that long. But in the interim, we know that we have a housing crisis. We don't have enough units for our folks. They're not affordable. And I think going forward, we're going to have to find some other unique solutions for folks to be housed. And not just to be housed so you've got this, 4 walls and a roof over your head, but to thrive while you're going forward. And that may mean that you have multiple families in homes where they're creating their own ecosystem and balancing off of each other, with their skills and what they bring and their resources to thrive as a household. And so, friendships, spousal relationships, all those things I think are going to come into play as people navigate how to make it through, right? And then maybe having, governments, local or federally start to think about allowing folks to mix, and match their resources, their subsidies, so that they can actually do more than just barely hang on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's a big reason why I wanted to have those questions in there.
Yeah, we've lost that neighborhood, we've lost that village capability, not necessarily the village mentality, but the village support, the 20 different families living together for a long time and making sure nobody flounders. Like we don't have that anymore. And it's something that, the government can kind of fake. But maybe if they really focused on it, it could be recreated in some programs to allow people to lift each other up and enable people to support each other. How long has it been since Washington, or was it just Seattle, declared homelessness an emergency? Isn't it like 4 or 5 years? But then you look at trying to compare, the homelessness, which it's hard to argue is not some kind of pandemic, to the COVID response. I mean, COVID hit and we had, in King County, we had people in hotels, we had people, in shelters. In Kitsap County, we had people in the pavilion. I mean, it was like all of a sudden we're treating it like we should be.
So it can be done.
And yeah, it can be done, and it should have been done decades ago. So how do we convert that pandemic response, an actual emergency response, and turn it into something that's serving the people who are experiencing this grand emergency that's been going on for much longer than COVID, and it's taking lives as well. It's hard to quantify how many, but
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You are watching The Conduit. I'm Marwan Cameron. Our guest tonight is Anton Preisinger. Good mood, so it is what it is. But let's continue on. Uh, Something interesting about yourself or something that people don't know about you.
yeah. So um, I thought about this a little bit ahead of time, but I didn't think of anything interesting. Um, uh, I I don't want. It's not really a self promotion because it's barely existing. But I do have a children's book published,
Oh,
self
really?
published. It's called Shaky. It's on Amazon. I think it's pretty good. Um, and then I'm kind of a want to be writer. I don't give it the time it deserves. So until I start giving it the time, it'll never happen. But hopefully someday I'll get something more published, and hopefully something published in a more traditional manner than the self-publishing I did for Shaky. But that was a fun process, and it's fun to see it to have a product in your hand that you created, and my sister-in-law did the illustration, so it was a fun project.
Oh, really?
Other than that, I'm published on several peer-reviewed journal articles from back in my day when I was, creating data for diabetes research. So
Oh,
one of
wow.
them, I suppose people might. I'll pick a short one here. Um, EMC components guide IL-10 producing regulatory T cell TR1 induction from effector memory T cell precursors. So that's the title to one of the papers. I'm one minor author on, but that was fun, and always fun to see things get released and guide that hopefully someday soon some kind of real treatment for diabetes, and that's where some of my excitement from the vaccine comes from, seeing how they're using the mRNA and CRISPR and all these new technologies. It's exciting to see, and think about the possibilities for diabetes and cancer, and what's going to come in the next 15, 20 years. I think is going to be um, something pretty revolutionary, I think.
Wow. So you understand all of the jargon and the sciencey stuff. Like,
I
oh,
I
yeah.
I know enough to know what I don't understand. um, but yeah, I try to follow it, and it's exciting. So
So tell me, the name of the book is Shaky. Is it Shaky?
yeah,
And then spell your last name, Prei
Prei Singer.
Singer. All right. And you can get that on Amazon. And it is a children's book. Just putting that in the chat there. Children's book, which I misspelled. So, but I wanted to get it out there. So yeah,
Thank
so
you.
something interesting about Anton is he is an author. And so put that out there. If you what age children for the book?
That one I'd say my kids like it, 3 and 6. They like having it read to them, and I don't know that the 3-year-old knows it that I wrote it, so it's not really a biased thing yet.
Uh-huh.
But I think a little bit older kids would enjoy reading it themselves, maybe in the 6, 7-year-old range. It's very simple, but um, I ascribe to higher vocabulary in children's books, so
Mm-hmm.
it'll push a reader, make them ask questions, and hopefully have fun.
Oh, I'm all for that. I love that. Well, you can read the book to your son over and over again until it's their favorite story, and then they get older. Like, oh yeah, that's my story.
I did that. It's a good idea.
It reminds me too. I actually read 4 books on video for Head Start, and I have to send them to Stephanie so she can send them over there before the school year's over. I was supposed to do it at the beginning, and then all this stuff happened, and for my birthday, Layla was here. We're cooking and doing our thing, and was like, "Oh well, what do you want to do now, Daddy?" We opened up our gifts. I was like, we need to read these books. So we read the books on video, and so it was fun. So that's how I spent
Very
my
cool.
birthday actually. So it was pretty cool, doing stuff for the kids. But let's get into Northwest hospitality.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I could go on for, 5 or 6 more hours. So um so is there anything in particular you want me to
Well,
chat about, or just keep things in general?
no, no, no. Just if you kind of give an overview of what it is you do and how it operates, um, maybe talk about people how they can access the clothing closet because I think that's a really big deal. We just had one of our folks move, and I just told him he went and bought some things. I was like, "Oh, well, did you check Anton's site?" And he just was like, "What, really?" It's like, yeah. So it's just kind of that getting that reminder out, on a
Yeah.
consistent basis is really the big deal, and then talk about um, any kind of upcoming projects or goals that you have, like with the parking and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Northwest Hospitality, I started in 2016, after spending quite a few years, um, kind of dreaming up ideas and doing my own hygiene kits. And it just got to a point where I wanted to start the nonprofit so that I could do more of that, because I couldn't afford it myself. So I formed the 501c3 to be able to accept donations. And then those two programs really quickly started turning into many, many other programs. The hygiene kits, um, I realized, I mean, they're fantastic. A lot of groups do kits. Um, my philosophy on them is that not they're a great way to get the community involved, but they don't really solve much. So I try to use them as a tool to educate, to get the community involved, particularly youth. But then if you the key to making them something a bit more than a hygiene kit is including some useful resources in that bag with them. Something
Oh, nice.
things locally that, um, potentially people haven't researched or haven't discovered yet. So that realization spawned, our resource database, which is also available on our website. People can go, you type in your county, you type in what resources you need, whether it's food, housing, hygiene, healthcare, addiction treatment, and then a list of resources in your area comes up, and that's, available on our website. If you just click on Find Resources, you can find that tool. And we have most of the resources we have in our database right now are from King County, a lot in Kitsap, Pierce, Snohomish, and some in Whatcom County, places where I have distributed kits.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so as I'm hoping to bring some volunteers on to help me scrape the internet and build that out to include the whole state. Because I'd like to create one spot, where people can go to find, um, useful information like that, and, trying to put it together so that groups like yours can just embed the tool in your website. And I talked to I worked with you guys on that for a little bit. We couldn't quite figure it out. I'm not a coder, so, I'm missing a few steps in there. I'm still trying to figure that out, but, that's something that I'm excited about, because getting people connected to resources is one of our primary roles in the system at large. The hygiene kits also kind of spawned, distributing of those kits kind of spawned the environmental hospitality, the litter cleanups as well, because we were meeting more and more people, and that is just a very simple, obvious, um, problem that most, if not all, encampments and cities struggle with. So the more volunteers we can get involved in the Adopt a Road programs or in our own cleanup efforts, the better for the environment, the better for our communities, the better for our neighbors. It's just a win all around. So that spawned out of distributing those kits and supplies.
Is there an age requirement to do the cleanup?
Not written down anywhere. I've had volunteers show up with younger children, and that made me a little bit uncomfortable. There's some inherent dangers with picking that up, and being able to be aware of those dangers is an important part of staying safe. So I would ask people to, not bring kids under 7 or 8, able to follow directions and understand risk and reward. But I'm not going to, force anything on anybody. If they want to come out and keep their kids safe, then I tend to trust people to make their decisions. So
gotcha. And if they wanted
yeah.
to come out and help with that, would they just contact you through the website?
Yeah, so we have an event page on our website under the Get Involved tab. You can go to that, and all the events that we put up there. We don't do a whole lot of them, but as we grow and get more support on the board and more volunteer support, we have some new volunteer leads who are able to lead those cleanups themselves. And we provide the supplies for that. So there's also a spot on the site where people can suggest locations that need a little bit of volunteer TLC. So if people have a spot, then we can start building up a queue of places that need it. To date, we've kind of focused on the same locations, bigger encampments that need repeat attention. And so as we get a bigger queue, I'll be able to reach out to more volunteers and hopefully grow this to kind of take over and clean up more and more of our beautiful Pacific Northwest.
All right, that sounds really awesome. I've taken us both off the screen, and I'm showing your website while you talk. And
Okay,
so I'm looking
cool.
at the Get Involved, and I clicked on events here. I see a place to contribute if folks want to contribute. And it says, thank you for your generous support. And then you can click on the green icon that says donate to programs. You'll see all the programs there. 100% of the program donations support Northwest Hospitality's direct outreach efforts, respecting dignity and engaging communities, which is really awesome. Many banks have a bill pay option, which I encourage you to look into. They will send us a check every month with no fees. So that's really awesome. And there's information on there on if you're going to send a check. So check that out. I did want to go to the website. I want to get better at doing this when we have folks on. So, it doesn't seem so abstract. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. If you head over to the program tab, and from the contribute page, we do separate our program and operation. So if you donate to a program, all of your donations going to go to that program. We raise all of our operating costs separately. And so far, the past 4+ years, we've been 100%, grassroots, individual donors. A lot of really generous donors have kept us going with these programs, mostly because I apparently am not a good grant writer. But we're still searching for that first grant, and when we do, we'll be able to turn that on. But yeah, over at the program page, you can see kind of how we've diversified from those first couple of programs, the hygiene kits, and I haven't described the second program I started with yet, is our hospitality cards, is what I call, and they started out as food cards. I would hand out Subway cards, and tell people to hang on to them so that we could put, $20 more on every week. And that way they'd be able to get a meal with dignity on their own time and space. So that worked really well. But Subway is limited. They refused to start selling clothes for me. So we shifted to it's a business debit card that we're using now.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's enabled us to help people get gas for the car that they're living in so that they can stay warm through these, freezing nights. People have bought food. People have bought train tickets to meet up with family. It's a much more what the industry calls flexible spending accounts, basically. But one of the strengths is it allows us to build a relationship with the person who's holding the card. They can make requests, and we can discuss their needs and find solutions, not always by giving them money to spend on anything. And then at the same time, we have the accountability to our donors. We can show them exactly what was purchased, and we can show when even when mistakes are made. Sometimes people have used the card to buy things we ask them not to, like tobacco products or things like that. We can share that, and that's a discussion topic for the card holder as well. So it's a really great way to build relationships while supporting someone's journey toward employment or housing. So that program's probably by far our most capital dependent. I mean, the resource curation, the environmental hospitality, those are free. They don't cost us anything. The hospitality kits, we rely on our donors for those, and hopefully soon some grants.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I really like that. And it's so easy to get involved in help, and it's really low barrier help too. You know, and there's a lot of different ways. Whether you want to come out and do the cleanup, if you want to put some money on a card. Um, what is what else is going on with you and Northwest Hospitality?
So as on that same program page, that's where people can access the mobile supply closet. If they click on the link at the top there, that'll take you down, and the supplies that are available through our closet are um, perusable right there on our website. And there's a button you can click to request an item, and then you can build out a list of other things from our closet if you need more than one item. And then our volunteers will network together, and we probably won't be quick because we're small and busy, but we will get your items delivered to you, and with good wishes. No judgment, no requirements really. If you need an item, and if you request an item and I find out you're a millionaire, I might ask you not to accept it. But I'm assuming that people who are using these resources are going to benefit from them one way or another. So partner programs is something that's grown a lot through 2020. Basically, these are groups who we are starting to sponsor as a 501c3, and that was one of my goals, kind of showing what we can do kind of on an all volunteer basis, and being flexible enough to take other groups under our wing and support their efforts, because it's so hard to create something that is universally useful wherever you are. And real power and capability comes from being local and doing things on the ground, and being able to react quickly. So we're trying to be that flexible oversight where we have our standards for our donors to make sure that things are being done right and people are being respected, and donations aren't being wasted, but we're also giving that flexibility to programs to do all kinds of different things. We're sponsoring some of the efforts of Hawks, the homeless organizing community, Seattle, over in Seattle, obviously. And then we're working with Hot Java Cafe in Bremerton. They have one of our hospitality cards. So if people show up there and need a coffee or a meal, then they can get that for free through money that's raised through the Hot Java campaign there. And then we're supporting the Kitsap neighborhood little pantries. Although they don't need much help from us, we're just there to be available if they need anything. So we've done a little bit of fundraising, but being a community driven program, it's fairly self-sustaining, and the coordinator of that is Darla Bradis. She pretty much runs it, and we're just kind of there if she needs anything. So and then we have most of the rest of the things I have shared on the website. There are the safe parking network, the dental services, the haircut vouchers. Those are kind of on par with the contractor network I was discussing earlier. Great ideas, but they haven't really caught traction yet. So the safe parking network, I'm hoping to decentralize, create a new paradigm for that kind of service. Usually, if you look at it around the country, it's one church opens up its parking lot for a night. You show up after 9, you leave by 7. That's wonderful and needed, but it doesn't provide a stability that could be really useful in mobilizing people out of the situation that they find themselves in. So this safe parking network, I'm hoping to partner with small business owners, landlords, people who are willing to each donate one parking space to this network. And then the available spaces would be viewable on our website. People could check in. We would collect some information from them. If they didn't have insurance or registration or anything like that, we would work with them to get those documents. So we'd be serving the community by getting people insured who are on the road. And then the dental services.
Let me ask you, Anton, really quick. If let's say I'm a property owner and I'm like, I would allow someone to park in front of my house, what would that look like?
So the program's set up to be fairly, and if you go down to it on our website, there's kind of a proposal there, as well as a draft of the agreement we would have the participants sign to participate, to keep the property owners safe. So it's not no barrier, but it is fairly low barrier. And the program is set up to be kind of flexible. Our hope is that each location will provide, a plug and electricity, and then we will supply an extension cord and either a small heater that's car safe or a small air conditioning unit, so that these cars can park and they can maintain their environment without running their vehicle 24/7. So it'd be, healthier for the environment and cost a lot less than replenishing that gas all the time. So access to a power outlet, and then hopefully access to a toilet facilities somewhere, and however that works might vary by location. If it's a church or something, maybe they can have access to the building. Each host will have access to know and see pictures and contact information of who is using the site at any given time. So it is possible that somebody could have access to a building, given some code that changes based on who's staying there, or that's all negotiable, and we can work out solutions per site. But then it could also look like an agreement with the 7-Eleven around the corner. they could also have access to see who's using a particular safe parking network parking space, and then that person could be allowed to come and go so long as they respected the place. And the idea, hopefully, is that working with volunteers through Northwest Hospitality, they could actually be a benefit to the neighborhood. They could, instead of attracting a large amount of car campers, which can be a draw on an area for any number of reasons, they can work through us, through our volunteers, and we can say, hey, I'm sorry you can't park here, but we have these 12 other spaces within, a couple miles, and you'll have access to power, access to a bathroom. Please go check into one of those so that we can maintain this area and keep the neighbors happy. And we will work with you if you're up there to connect you with resources and find other solutions for you. So hopefully that's again another win-win-win kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I love the idea. So how long would I be committing to? A day, a week, a month? Like
again, that would be something that's site specific. It could be set up differently at each location. The goal, again, like I was saying with the churches, it's to create a stability, because when you're spending half your day wondering where you're going to be parking for the next night, it's hard to call the resources you need to find your next job. And then you spend the rest of your time trying to figure out how to pay for food or cleaning your car because you spilled your soda on the rug. It's hard to work yourself out of a situation like that if you're bouncing around all the time. So the goal, the hope is most sites will be kind of, this is just an open parking space. As long as you need, you check in, and then you make use of the resources we can connect you with while you're there, and stay as long as you can. But if a location is not able or willing to do that, then certainly we can set up other, and it's in the it's already built in the tool that I put together. We can, this site is only available for 24 hours, or check out, you got to check out by 10 a.m. or something like that. So it's flexible.
Oh, I think
was the goal.
Awesome.
So
I think that's really awesome. And just to go back really quick, as you were talking about the clothing closet, what I was doing was clicking on some of the items, because what you've done is you've written a detail, but you've also taken a picture of the item to actually get a chance to take a look at it, which is really powerful and helpful.
Most of them, yes. When I started the closet, I was using a satellite internet provider, which when I took a picture, it would take 4 minutes to upload the picture. And so I would get a box of clothes, and so there's a few boxes that, and some items that don't have pictures taken. But yeah, as soon as I was able to, we still don't have the fastest internet, but we upgraded, and it was more practical to share those pictures. So yeah, it makes a huge difference in the usability of the mobile closet. So yeah, I really hope people start using that, and we're looking into the possibility of getting a trailer or something like that, so that we can, like at your Thanksgiving feed, I was able to fill my van and bring some bins, and then people were able to kind of peruse what I had in stock with me. And it's really easy to do with the way I have the inventory set up. I can know exactly what I have brought to an event. So when we finally get a trailer, I can have all the bins stored in there, and we can just drive around and play Santa. So
oh, that's awesome.
Looking forward to that.
All right. So is there anything else that's kind of upcoming with Northwest Hospitality?
Those are most of it. I think everything's really growing. The hospitality cards have been just eye-opening as far as the power of being able to connect with somebody at that level and help them with just the basic necessities, kind of so simply. It takes nothing. I mean, money. I have maybe a non-standard relationship with money, privileged standard probably, where it's not worth much. If I can spend, $20,000 to get somebody out of homelessness, then that's worth it to me. And we haven't done that. We haven't had those resources, but um, I feel like it's possible to, on a one-on-one basis, really serve people, find their needs, and help them help themselves out of situations. And the hospitality cards is a really powerful tool to do that. Um, so as we grow, we're going to see that more. And so yeah, right now it's a lot of pokers in the fire, and trying to stay above the waves with it all. So we do have some opportunities for anybody who wants to sit on a board. I don't know. There's a lot of opportunities out there. We're 100% volunteer, and that's kind of a virtue. I want to see what we can do with volunteers. I want to push that boundary, and I hope to eventually get to a point where we can pay people for their services who are working with us from a homeless position. I want to be able to create jobs in that way, but I want to see what the organization can do with this community model, kind of the village mentality kind of thing. What can we bring that back using technology, and rely on just a couple hours a week of work from a whole bunch of different people and coordinate it properly so that we can grow to scale with just volunteers. Maybe it'll fail, but I want to see where I can take the organization with that kind of mentality. So
It's just a prevailing theme, not being afraid to fail and giving it a go and just trying.
yeah,
And almost everyone I've spoken with, that's kind of the theme of them going out and charging ahead and trying to make a difference. So it's really powerful. We are talking with Anton Preisinger. This is the Conduit with Marwan Cameron. There are so many different ways to get involved with Northwest Hospitality. Whether or not you want to go out and help with the cleanup, if you want to donate on the cards, if you want to give of your time, so many different things, even sitting on a board. It's a really powerful, and I would say a low barrier entry. If you're like, what, I want to find a way to give back. I don't know how to give back. I'm apprehensive about, maybe sitting on a bigger organization's board, and oftentimes we might feel like, well, I don't really belong. Yeah, you belong here. This is the space for you. You've got the spirit, you got the energy, you want to give back, you want to make a difference. You can learn from the ground up. You may have aspirations of having your own nonprofit one day, and what better way to get experience and learn than by joining another one and kind of seeing how the sausage is made and kind of working through the problems, creating collaborations, making relationships with folks. Just really tremendously powerful, and it's just a good way to give back. The energy that I would, if I can speak for Anton, that we get off of doing this work, it's just a motivating factor to keep giving of ourselves every single day. And a lot of times there's hard days, but I would say most days we can't wait to get out there and try to make a difference in people's lives. So yeah, absolutely. And also to speak on the cards, what's so powerful about that, and you spoke about dignity, and dignity was on your website also. But when you think about homeless individuals and folks that are food insecure, oftentimes, they're very thankful for the meals that they get, but those meals are for practicality standpoints at certain times of day, right? You get a meal, you get a breakfast at 7:30, lunch is at 12:30, and dinner is at 6. And Anton talked about privilege, right? And part of that privilege is I'm hungry, I want to eat something, I can choose to eat it whenever. And so by having that card, you really empower someone to make some of their own choices. And so I really think those cards are really powerful, and it's a really great way for you to donate and make a tangible impact in people's lives.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what we're going for, and that's how it's been working out. It's the impacts of the cards, all of the expenses. You can go on our website and basically I've set everything up so um, if you're that kind of person, you can go on our website and audit everything we've done right there, and you can see the impact, and you can judge us based on exactly what we're doing. So that's another thing that we're really proud of here with how it's come together. So
Well, I will continue to shout you out. I'd so appreciate you coming and spending some time with us, and
this has been a
having
blast.
having the podcast go down 3 times. Of course, it happened with you. Your internet goes down, so you've got to reschedule with
That's right.
with us, and then it goes down 3 times. So thank you for being a good sport. I hope you'll come back on the podcast. If you guys don't know, G2 and Northwest Hospitality kind of work together almost on a daily basis, it seems like. And so that is the power of collaboration behind the scenes of doing the work. And we're not waiting for the perfect conditions. Anton and I both started our organizations out of our own home. And it's just about getting out there and trying. And if you fail, you fail. But as I said before, I don't lose. I only learn. So I win or I learn. I don't lose. And so, if you can adopt that mindset, a growth mindset, and one of optimism, other people that are optimistic, you'll find them. They'll gravitate. We find each other. It's just how it goes. The Dawn Michelles, the Robert Dents, the Raymonds, all of us end up kind of finding each other. And as I said, in 2021, we're just finding some new ways to collaborate and make impacts in people's lives and in our community. So any final thoughts, Anton, before we sign off?
I just want to thank you. This was a lot of fun, and G2 is doing amazing things. I can't wait to see what you guys are doing in 5 and 10 years. It's going to be impressive. So thanks for having me, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. You heard it there. This is Anton Preisinger. I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit. We have interviews all week. It is a crazy week. As I said, I have some really big announcements that will be coming out either tomorrow or Friday. As I said before, we need 70 volunteers for April. We are going back to CenturyLink to our sounders. So they've asked us to run, I think, 14 stands. We've never had 70 volunteers at one time. As I said before, 35 to 40. 70, it's a challenge. We do need to let them know by March 8th. So if you're ready to come back to the team, if you're new, want to volunteer, it's a great experience checking out CenturyLink and making an impact here. As I said before, all proceeds go in to serve the mission. If you don't have a food handler's permit, we do pay for that. If you don't have an alcohol permit, we pay for that. We provide transportation to the event and back. And if you need a letter to leave the county, we can provide that to you. If you need a letter to sign off on volunteer hours or community service, we can do that for you also. So we look forward to hearing from you. Just go ahead and give us a call. Our information is at the bottom of the stream, or reach out to me on Facebook. And if that is all, I will see you tomorrow at the same time, 6:30 p.m. for our next interview. So I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit. Have a good one, and have a great day tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye. Thanks, Anton.
Thank you so much. Impressive you can do this night after night. That's a lot of work. Keep it up. It's awesome.